The Texas sun beat down mercilessly on the cracked asphalt of Pearson Street in the small town of Lockhart, about 30 miles south of Austin. It was June 14, 2019, and the temperature had already climbed to 92 degrees by 11 in the morning, the kind of heat that made the air shimmer above the hood of patrol cars and turned playground equipment into branding irons. Detective Sarah Mitchell wiped the sweat from her forehead as she stepped out of her unmarked sedan, her boots crunching on the gravel driveway of a modest single-story home with peeling blue paint. The house belonged to the Adams family, and for the past 6 hours it had been the epicenter of every parent's worst nightmare. 5-year-old Chloe Adams was missing. Sarah had been with the Lockhart Police Department for 12 years, working her way up from patrol officer to detective. She'd seen her share of missing children cases, and she knew the statistics all too well. The first few hours were critical. Every minute that ticked by reduced the chances of finding a child alive and unharmed. The front yard was already crowded with patrol vehicles, their lights painting the neighborhood in alternating shades of red and blue. Neighbors had gathered on their porches and lawns, some holding their own children closer, whispering behind cupped hands. Fear spread through small towns like wildfire, and Lockhart was no exception. Inside the house, chaos had given way to a heavy, suffocating silence. Rachel Adams sat on the worn couch in the living room, her face buried in her hands, her body shaking with sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep and primal. Her husband, Marcus Adams, stood by the window, staring out at nothing, his jaw clenched so tight Sarah could see the muscles working beneath his skin. "Mrs. Adams," Sarah said softly, sitting down beside the distraught mother. "I need you to walk me through this morning one more time. I know it's difficult, but any detail, no matter how small, could help us find Chloe." Rachel looked up, her eyes red and swollen. She was 32 years old, a waitress at the local diner with sandy blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. Her hands trembled as she twisted a tissue between her fingers. "I put her down for her nap around 9:30, Rachel began, her voice hoarse from crying. "She was tired from playing outside. I went to fold laundry in the bedroom. The door was locked. I always lock the front door when she's napping. Always." Her voice cracked on the last word. "How long were you in the bedroom?" Sarah asked, her pen poised over her notebook. "Maybe 20 minutes. When I came back to check on her, she was gone. Her bedroom window was open. I never opened that window, never." Sarah made a note. The window. Forced entry? Or had someone known the house well enough to know which room was Chloe's? Marcus turned from the window, his voice rough. "I was at work, at the auto shop on Highway 183. I got there at 7 this morning. My boss, Terry Munson, he can confirm it. I didn't even know anything was wrong until Rachel called me, screaming." Sarah studied him. Marcus Adams was 35, a mechanic with calloused hands and oil permanently stained under his fingernails. His work boots were still covered in garage grime. He looked like a man watching his world collapse in real time. "Mr. Adams, I need to ask you some difficult questions. Has anyone shown unusual interest in Chloe recently? Anyone who made you uncomfortable?" Marcus shook his head slowly. "No. Chloe's shy around strangers. She goes to Little Sprouts daycare 3 days a week. Rachel drops her off, I pick her up, that's our routine. What about friends, family? Anyone who's had access to your home?" Rachel's eyes darted to Marcus, then back to Sarah. There was something there, a flicker of hesitation. "What is it, Mrs. Adams?" Sarah pressed gently. "My brother," Rachel whispered. Kevin Morrison. He's been staying with us off and on for the past month. He's been going through a rough time. Lost his job, his apartment. We were trying to help him get back on his feet." Sarah's instincts sharpened. "Where is Kevin now?" "He left yesterday morning," Marcus said. "Said he had a job interview in San Antonio. He was supposed to be back last night, but he never showed up. We figured he might have crashed with a friend there." "Does Kevin have a car?" "An old Ford pickup, dark green. I can get you the plate number." Sarah stood, signaling to Officer Tom Reeves, a young patrolman with earnest eyes who'd been standing by the door. "Tom, I need you to run a Kevin Morrison. Get me his last known address, employment history, any priors." Ann put out a bolo on that green Ford pickup. "Yes, ma'am," Tom said, already pulling out his radio. Sarah turned back to the parents. "I need a recent photo of Chloe, the best one you have. We're going to plaster her face across every news station, every social media platform, every storefront in this county." Rachel stood on shaking legs and retrieved her phone from the coffee table. She scrolled through with trembling fingers before stopping on a photo. This was from her birthday party last month. Sarah looked at the screen. Chloe Adams stared back at her, a tiny girl with wispy brown hair, hazel eyes, and a gap-toothed smile. She wore a pink dress with white flowers and held a stuffed unicorn. She looked impossibly small, impossibly fragile. "We're going to find her," Sarah said, though the words felt hollow even as she spoke them. The next several hours blurred into a frenzy of activity. Search teams were organized, consisting of local police, sheriff's deputies, and volunteers from the community. They fanned out across Lockhart, checking abandoned buildings, wooded areas, drainage ditches, anywhere a small child might be hidden or might have wandered. Bloodhounds were brought in, sniffing Chloe's pajamas and following a trail that led from her bedroom window, through the backyard, to the alley behind the house where it abruptly ended. Whoever had taken her had used a vehicle. By evening, the story had hit the local news. Chloe's face appeared on television screens across Central Texas, her innocent smile a stark contrast to the grim updates being delivered by reporters. The tip line was flooded with calls, most of them well-meaning, but ultimately useless sightings of children who looked nothing like Chloe. Sarah worked through the night, coordinating with state police, reviewing surveillance footage from nearby businesses, anything that might provide a lead. But as the sun rose on June 15th, they were no closer to finding Chloe Adams than they had been 24 hours earlier. Kevin Morrison's Ford pickup had been located in a grocery store parking lot in San Antonio, abandoned with the keys still in the ignition. Kevin himself had vanished. The case was gaining momentum in all the wrong ways. National news outlets picked up the story. True crime bloggers began speculating wildly. The FBI offered assistance. And with each passing hour, the statistics grew more damning. On the third day, a cadaver dog alerted near a creek bed 5 miles from the Adams home. Sarah's heart sank as she watched the recovery team carefully excavate the area, but they found nothing. False alarm. The dog had likely picked up on animal remains. Rachel Adams stopped eating, stopped sleeping. She sat in Chloe's room for hours, clutching that stuffed unicorn, rocking back and forth. Marcus threw himself into the search efforts, joining every volunteer team, refusing to rest, as if constant motion could somehow rewind time and bring his daughter back. By June 20th, 6 days after Chloe's disappearance, the mood had shifted from desperate hope to grim resignation. Search efforts were scaled back. The media moved on to other stories. The tip line went quiet. On June 23rd, 9 days after Chloe vanished, Sarah sat in her office at the police department, staring at the case file spread across her desk. Photos of Chloe, interviews with neighbors, background checks on Kevin Morrison, timelines that led nowhere. Her phone rang. "Detective Mitchell," she answered, her voice flat with exhaustion. "Sarah, it's Chief Hawkins. We need to have a conversation about the Adams case." Sarah closed her eyes. She knew what was coming. "The state investigators are recommending we shift our focus," the chief continued. "They believe Chloe is deceased and that we should treat this as a recovery operation rather than a rescue." "No," Sarah said firmly. "We don't know that. We haven't found a body. Kevin Morrison is still in the wind. There's still a chance. Sarah, I know this is hard, but we have to be realistic. It's been over a week. The likelihood of finding her alive at this point is—" "I don't care about statistics," Sarah interrupted. "That little girl is out there somewhere, and I'm not giving up on her." There was a long pause. "I'm not asking you to give up. I'm asking you to adjust your expectations and redirect resources accordingly. We'll continue investigating, but the large-scale search operations are being suspended." Sarah hung up and put her head in her hands. She thought about Rachel Adams, about that stuffed unicorn, about those hazel eyes in the birthday photo. Somewhere in her gut, beyond logic and statistics, Sarah still believed Chloe was alive. She just had to find her before it was too late. The morning of June 24th arrived with the same oppressive heat that had marked every day since Chloe's disappearance. Detective Sarah Mitchell had barely slept, her mind churning through the case details like a machine that couldn't be shut off. She'd spent the night reviewing Kevin Morrison's background again, looking for something, anything that might have been overlooked. Kevin Morrison was 38 years old, Rachel Adams' half-brother from their mother's second marriage. His record showed a pattern of instability: 3 DUIs over the past decade, a domestic violence charge that had been dropped when his ex-girlfriend refused to testify, multiple evictions, and a string of failed jobs. He'd been working as a construction laborer before being laid off in April, but there was nothing that screamed child abductor. No history of crimes against children, no registered sex offender status, nothing that would have raised red flags when Rachel and Marcus had taken him in. Sarah arrived at the station at 6 in the morning to find Officer Tom Reeves already at his desk, looking like he hadn't gone home either. His uniform was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. "You find something?" Sarah asked, setting down her coffee. Tom looked up, and there was something in his expression that made Sarah's pulse quicken. "Maybe. I've been going through Kevin Morrison's phone records. His cell phone went dark the day before Chloe disappeared, but I got curious about his previous activity." He pulled up a screen on his computer. For the 3 weeks before Chloe went missing, Kevin made regular calls to a number registered to a burner phone. The conversations were short, never more than a few minutes. But here's what's interesting. The cell tower pings show that burner phone was in Lockhart during those calls. Sarah leaned over his shoulder, studying the data. Someone local. Kevin was coordinating with someone here in town. That's what I'm thinking. And look at this. Tom pulled up another screen. 2 days before Chloe disappeared, Kevin withdrew $300 from an ATM in cash. His bank account shows he was broke, had been overdrawn twice the previous month. Where did that money come from? Sarah felt the pieces beginning to shift in her mind, not quite connecting, but starting to form a picture. He was being paid. Someone was paying him to do something, or to help them do something, Tom added quietly. Sarah grabbed her jacket. "We need to talk to Rachel and Marcus again. See if they noticed anything about Kevin's behavior in those last few days. Any meetings? Any new friends? Anything unusual?" The drive to the Adams house felt longer than the actual 15 minutes it took. The neighborhood looked different now, 10 days after the abduction. The news vans were gone, the crowds of concerned neighbors had dispersed, and life had begun to return to its normal rhythm for everyone except the family at 412 Pearson Street. Rachel answered the door looking like a ghost of herself. She'd lost weight, her clothes hanging loose on her frame. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hair, unwashed for days, hung limp around her face. "Detective," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Have you found something?" "We have some questions about Kevin," Sarah said gently. "May we come in?" Inside, Marcus sat at the kitchen table staring at a cup of cold coffee. He didn't look up when they entered. Sarah sat across from them. "I need you to think carefully about the days before Chloe disappeared. Did Kevin have any visitors? Did he meet with anyone? Did you notice him acting differently?" Rachel's brow furrowed as she thought back. "He was on his phone a lot, more than usual. I remember thinking it was odd because he'd been complaining about not having money for his phone bill. Did you ever see who he was talking to?" "No. He always went outside or to his room. Said it was about job prospects, interviews." Her voice broke. "I believed him. I trusted him with my daughter." Marcus finally spoke, his voice hollow. "There was one night, maybe 3 days before Chloe was taken. I got up around 2 in the morning to get water. Kevin's truck was gone. When I asked him about it the next morning, he said he couldn't sleep and went for a drive." "Did that seem unusual?" Sarah asked. "Everything about Kevin was unusual lately," Marcus said bitterly. "The man was a mess, but he was Rachel's brother and we were trying to help." Sarah made notes. "What about Chloe? How did she interact with Kevin?" Rachel's face crumpled. "She loved him, Uncle Kevin. He'd play with her, read her stories. That's what makes this so." She couldn't finish the sentence. "Mrs. Adams," Sarah said carefully, "I need to ask you something difficult. Did Kevin ever show inappropriate interest in Chloe? Anything that made you uncomfortable?" Rachel's head snapped up. "No. God, no. Kevin had problems, but he loved Chloe. He would never hurt her. Whatever he did, whoever he was working with, I don't believe he wanted to harm her." Sarah wasn't so sure, but she kept that to herself. "What about Marcus's family? Your friends? Anyone who might have had a reason to take Chloe?" Marcus stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the linoleum. "You think we don't ask ourselves that every single second? We've been through everyone we know, everyone who's ever met Chloe. There's no one who would do this." But Sarah had learned over the years that people were capable of things their loved ones could never imagine. The human capacity for deception ran deep, especially when money was involved. Money. The word stuck in her mind. "Tell me about Chloe's custody situation," Sarah said. "Are there any family disputes? Anyone who might have claimed rights to her?" Rachel and Marcus exchanged a look. "My ex-husband," Rachel said finally. "Daniel Foster, Chloe's biological father. He's been trying to get visitation rights for the past year." Sarah's pen stilled. "And this wasn't in your initial statement because Daniel lives in Oklahoma," Marcus said. "He hasn't seen Chloe since she was a baby." The courts denied his petition because of his criminal record. Drug charges, mostly. We didn't think it was relevant. Sarah felt a cold certainty settling over her. I need Daniel Foster's contact information. Everything you have on him. As Rachel retrieved the information, Sarah stepped outside and called Tom. Run a Daniel Foster. Last known address in Oklahoma. I want to know where he was on June 14th, and I want to know if he has any connection to Kevin Morrison. On it, Tom said. Sarah stood in the driveway, watching the heat waves shimmer off the asphalt. The case was opening up, revealing new layers, new possibilities. Kevin Morrison hadn't acted alone. The burner phone, the late-night trips, the sudden cash. He'd been coordinating with someone. Her phone buzzed. A text from Tom. Foster has an aunt in Bastrop, Margaret Foster, 35 minutes from Lockhart. Bastrop, close enough to coordinate with Kevin, far enough to avoid immediate suspicion. Sarah's radio crackled. All units, we have a 911 call from 1847 Old Mill Road in Bastrop County. Caller reports hearing a child crying in an abandoned house on their property. Responding units requested. Sarah's heart stopped. She ran to her car, tires squealing as she pulled out of the driveway. Old Mill Road. She entered it into her GPS. 28 minutes away. She flipped on her lights and siren, weaving through traffic on Highway 183. Her radio exploded with chatter as other units responded to the call. Every second felt like an eternity. The abandoned house sat at the end of a long dirt road, surrounded by overgrown fields and twisted oak trees. 2 patrol cars were already there when Sarah arrived, and Deputy Carlos Mendoza stood by the front door. We haven't gone in yet, he said. Wanted to wait for you. But Detective, I can hear something. Someone's inside. Sarah drew her weapon, her hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Lockhart PD. If anyone is inside, identify yourself. Silence. Then, so faint she almost missed it, a small voice. Help. Sarah's training took over. She nodded to Mendoza, and together, they entered the house. The interior was dark, musty, with broken furniture and debris scattered across the floor. The crying was coming from a back room. Sarah pushed open the door and her breath caught. On a filthy mattress in the corner, wrapped in a torn blanket, was Chloe Adams. The sight of Chloe Adams huddled on that mattress would haunt Sarah Mitchell for the rest of her career. The little girl was alive, but barely recognizable from the smiling child in the birthday photo. Her brown hair was matted and dirty. Her pink pajamas, the same ones she'd been wearing when she was taken, were stained and torn. Her face was gaunt, her lips cracked from dehydration, and her hazel eyes were wide with terror and confusion. Chloe, Sarah said softly, holstering her weapon and kneeling slowly. Sweetheart, my name is Sarah. I'm a police officer. You're safe now. We're going to take you home to your mommy and daddy. The child didn't respond, just stared with those hollow eyes. Sarah could see her ribs through the thin fabric of her pajamas. Dark bruises marked her arms. The anger that surged through Sarah was almost overwhelming, but she forced herself to remain calm, gentle. Deputy Mendoza called for an ambulance while Sarah carefully approached Chloe. The room was disgusting. Empty food containers, a bucket that had clearly been used as a makeshift toilet, a single bottle of water lying on its side. Someone had kept this child in conditions fit for an animal. Can you tell me your name? Sarah asked, sitting down on the floor a few feet away, making herself less threatening. Chloe? The girl whispered, her voice hoarse. I want my mommy. We're going to get you to your mommy very soon. Can you tell me who brought you here? Chloe's face crumpled and tears began streaming down her dirty cheeks. Uncle Kevin. He said we were going on an adventure, but then he locked me in here. He said I had to be quiet and wait. Sarah's jaw tightened. Was Uncle Kevin the only person you saw? Chloe shook her head. There was another man. He was mean. He yelled at Uncle Kevin. Uncle Kevin was scared of him. Did the mean man tell you his name? No, but Uncle Kevin called him Danny. Daniel Foster. Sarah's instincts had been right. The sound of sirens approached, and within minutes, paramedics rushed into the room. Sarah stepped back to let them work, watching as they carefully examined Chloe, checking her vital signs, wrapping her in a clean blanket. The little girl cried for her mother the entire time. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, and what appears to be physical abuse, one of the paramedics reported. We need to get her to Seton Medical Center immediately. As they loaded Chloe into the ambulance, Sarah called Rachel Adams. The phone rang twice before Rachel's frantic voice answered. Detective? Mrs. Adams, we found her. We found Chloe. She's alive. The sound that came through the phone was primal, a sob of relief so profound that Sarah felt tears prick her own eyes. She could hear Marcus in the background, shouting, crying, asking if it was true. She's dehydrated and malnourished, and we're transporting her to Seton Medical Center in Austin right now. You need to meet us there. She's asking for you. We're leaving right now. Oh God, thank you, thank you. Sarah hung up and turned to Deputy Mendoza. I need a forensics team here immediately. I want every inch of this property processed. Fingerprints, DNA, any evidence that can tell us who was here and what happened. Already called them, Mendoza said. Detective, there's something else you need to see. He led her to a small closet off the main room. Inside, Sarah found a collection of items that made her blood run cold. Zip ties, duct tape, a prepaid cell phone, and a folder containing documents. She carefully opened the folder with gloved hands. Inside were custody papers, legal documents related to Daniel Foster's petition for parental rights, and a handwritten note that said, Phase 1 complete. Payment due on delivery. Phase 2 begins after media coverage dies down. Phase 2? Mendoza said, reading over her shoulder. What the hell does that mean? Sarah's mind raced. This wasn't just a kidnapping. It was part of a larger plan. Daniel Foster hadn't taken Chloe on impulse or out of some twisted desire to be her father. This was calculated, methodical. She pulled out her phone and called Tom Reeves. Tom, I need you to get a warrant for Daniel Foster's arrest immediately. Kidnapping, child endangerment, conspiracy, and I need you to find out everything about his financial situation. Bank accounts, debts, any insurance policies. Insurance policies? Tom asked. Just do it. I have a bad feeling about this. Sarah followed the ambulance to Seton Medical Center, arriving just as Rachel and Marcus pulled into the parking lot. Rachel was out of the car before it had fully stopped, running toward the emergency entrance with Marcus close behind. Inside, Chloe had been taken to a private examination room. A team of doctors and nurses surrounded her, running tests, starting IV fluids, documenting her injuries. Through the observation window, Sarah watched Rachel burst into the room, collapsing at her daughter's bedside, gathering the tiny girl in her arms. The reunion was beautiful and heartbreaking. Chloe clung to her mother like she might disappear at any moment, sobbing against her chest. Marcus wrapped his arms around both of them, his shoulders shaking. For a moment, Sarah allowed herself to feel the victory of finding Chloe alive. But it was only a moment, because the case was far from over. Dr. Patricia Chen, the pediatrician overseeing Chloe's care, emerged from the room an hour later. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Detective Mitchell, she said, I need to speak with you privately. They moved to a quiet corner of the waiting area. Dr. Chen's expression was grave. Chloe is severely dehydrated and malnourished, which is consistent with being held captive for 10 days with minimal food and water. She has bruising on her arms and legs, likely from being restrained. There are no signs of sexual abuse, thank God. But the psychological trauma is going to be significant. Will she recover? Sarah asked. Physically, yes, with proper nutrition and care, her body will heal. Emotionally, Dr. Chen paused. That's going to take time, a lot of time, and professional help. This child has been through a horrific ordeal. Sarah nodded. She'd expected as much. How soon can I interview her? I need to know everything she can tell me about what happened. Not today. She needs to stabilize first. Maybe tomorrow if she's up to it. And I want a child psychologist present. Understood. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Tom. Got something big. Call me ASAP. She stepped outside into the brutal afternoon heat and dialed Tom's number. Tell me, she said without preamble. Daniel Foster filed for custody of Chloe Adams 6 months ago. The petition was denied because of his criminal record and lack of stable income. But here's where it gets interesting. 2 months ago, Foster took out a life insurance policy on Chloe. Sarah felt ice run through her veins despite the heat. How is that even possible? He doesn't have custody. Apparently in Oklahoma, a biological parent can take out a policy on their child even without custody, as long as they can prove paternity. The policy is for $500,000. $500,000. Phase 1 complete. Phase 2 begins after media coverage dies down. He was planning to kill her, Sarah said quietly. Take her, wait for everyone to believe she was dead, then actually kill her and collect the insurance money. Kevin Morrison was supposed to help him do it. That's what I'm thinking, Tom said. But there's more. I pulled Kevin Morrison's phone records going back 6 months. He and Daniel Foster have been in contact since February. Regular calls, text messages. They were planning this for months. Sarah felt sick. This wasn't a desperate father trying to reconnect with his daughter. This was a cold, calculated murder plot using a 5-year-old child as nothing more than a financial instrument. "Where is Daniel Foster now?" she asked. "That's the problem. He's in the wind. His aunt in Bastrop, Margaret Foster, says she hasn't seen him in weeks. His last known address in Oklahoma was abandoned 2 months ago. No credit card activity, no bank withdrawals since June 20th. He's gone dark. He knows we found Chloe. He's running. Probably. I've got an APB out and the FBI is involved now. We'll find him." Sarah hung up and stared at the hospital entrance. Inside, a little girl was being reunited with her parents, alive against all odds. But the man who'd orchestrated her kidnapping and planned her murder was still out there. And as long as Daniel Foster was free, Chloe Adams wasn't truly safe. Back inside, Sarah found Marcus Adams in the hallway, his head in his hands. He looked up when she approached. "Is she going to be okay?" he asked. "She's strong," Sarah said, sitting beside him. "Mr. Adams, I need to tell you something about why Chloe was taken." She explained what they'd discovered, the insurance policy, the planning, the intention behind the kidnapping. With every word, she watched Marcus's face transform from relief to horror to rage. "He was going to kill her?" Marcus whispered. "For money?" "We believe that was the plan, yes." Marcus stood abruptly, his fists clenched. "Where is he? Where's Daniel Foster?" "We don't know yet, but we will find him. I promise you that." "And Kevin? My wife's brother helped plan this?" Sarah nodded. "Kevin Morrison is also wanted for questioning. We believe Daniel paid him to help with the abduction." Marcus's laugh was bitter and broken. "We let him into our home. We trusted him with our daughter, and he sold her to a psychopath for money." There was nothing Sarah could say that would make this betrayal hurt less. The manhunt for Daniel Foster and Kevin Morrison consumed the next 48 hours. Their faces were plastered across every news outlet in Texas and Oklahoma. The FBI's Fugitive Task Force joined the search, analyzing financial records, known associates, and possible hiding locations. But both men seemed to have vanished into thin air. Sarah spent those 2 days shuttling between the hospital, the police station, and the abandoned house where Chloe had been held. The forensics team had processed the scene meticulously, collecting fingerprints, DNA samples, and trace evidence. Both Daniel Foster's and Kevin Morrison's fingerprints were found throughout the property, confirming they'd both been there. On June 26th, with Chloe stabilized and showing signs of physical recovery, Dr. Chen gave Sarah permission to conduct a brief interview. A child psychologist named Dr. Amanda Torres was present, along with Rachel Adams, who refused to leave her daughter's side. Chloe sat in the hospital bed, looking small against the white pillows. She was eating orange Jell-O, her 3rd cup that morning, and some color had returned to her cheeks. But her eyes still held that haunted quality, the mark of someone who'd seen the worst of what humans were capable of. "Hi, Chloe," Sarah said gently, sitting in a chair near the bed. "How are you feeling today?" "Better," Chloe said quietly. "The doctor says I can go home soon." "That's wonderful. I bet you're excited to sleep in your own bed again." Chloe nodded, glancing at her mother for reassurance. Rachel squeezed her hand. "Chloe, I know this is hard, but I need to ask you some questions about what happened. If you need to stop at any time, you just tell me, okay?" "Okay." Sarah pulled out a photo of Kevin Morrison. "Can you tell me what happened the morning Uncle Kevin took you?" Chloe's small fingers tightened around her mother's hand. "I was sleeping. Uncle Kevin came into my room and said we were going on a secret adventure. He said Mommy and Daddy knew about it, but it was a surprise." Rachel's face crumpled with guilt. "Oh, baby. He put me in his truck," Chloe continued, her voice trembling. "We drove for a long time. I asked where we were going, but he wouldn't tell me. He seemed sad, like he was crying." "What happened when you got to the house?" Sarah asked. "Uncle Kevin carried me inside. It was dark and scary. There was another man there." Chloe's eyes grew wide with fear. "The mean man." Sarah showed her a photo of Daniel Foster. "Is this the man?" Chloe nodded vigorously. "Yes, that's Danny. He was really mad at Uncle Kevin. He was yelling." "Do you remember what they were yelling about?" Chloe thought for a moment. "Danny said Uncle Kevin was supposed to come later, not during the day. He said people might have seen the truck. Uncle Kevin said he was sorry that he had to do it when Mommy wasn't watching." Sarah made notes. So Kevin had deviated from the plan, taking Chloe during the day instead of at night as apparently agreed. Perhaps his conscience had been eating at him, making him want to get it over with quickly. What happened after they stopped yelling? Sarah asked. Danny told Uncle Kevin to leave. Uncle Kevin looked at me and said he was sorry, then he left. Chloe's voice became smaller. I was alone with Danny. He was so mean. He said I had to stay quiet and be good or bad things would happen to my mommy and daddy. Rachel let out a sob, covering her mouth with her hand. Dr. Torres leaned forward, her voice soothing. Chloe, you're being very brave. You're safe now. That man can't hurt you or your parents. Danny brought me food sometimes, Chloe continued, but not a lot. I was so hungry and thirsty. I cried a lot, but he said if I didn't stop crying, he would hurt me. Sarah felt her anger crystallizing into something cold and focused. Daniel Foster had terrorized a 5-year-old child, keeping her in deplorable conditions, threatening her, starving her, all for an insurance payout. Did Danny say anything about what was going to happen next? Sarah asked carefully. Chloe nodded. He said I had to stay there for a long time, that everyone thought I was dead. He said. She paused, her small face scrunching up as she tried to remember. He said soon he would take me somewhere else, somewhere no one would ever find me, and then I would go to heaven like my goldfish did. The room fell silent. Rachel's sobs became audible. Marcus, who'd been standing in the doorway, turned away, his fist hitting the wall. Sarah maintained her composure, though inside she felt murderous. Chloe, you did exactly the right thing by staying strong and waiting for help. You're so brave. When will they catch Danny? Chloe asked, her voice small and frightened. What if he comes back? We have police officers outside your door right now, Sarah assured her. And we have police looking for Danny everywhere. He won't come near you, I promise. But even as she said it, Sarah knew that promises in law enforcement were dangerous. Until Daniel Foster was in custody, Chloe Adams would never be truly safe. That evening, Sarah returned to the station to find Tom Reeves hunched over his computer, surrounded by empty coffee cups and crumpled energy bar wrappers. Please tell me you have something, Sarah said. Tom looked up, his face drawn with exhaustion but his eyes bright with discovery. I've been digging into Daniel Foster's background going back years. The guy's a career criminal but mostly small-time stuff. Theft, drug possession, fraud. Never anything involving children, which is probably why he wasn't on anyone's radar for this. So what changed? Money problems. Or rather, the lack of money. Foster's been drowning in debt for years. He owed money to some dangerous people in Oklahoma City. Loan sharks, drug dealers. I found police reports where he'd been beaten up twice in the past year over unpaid debts. Tom pulled up a document on his screen. Then, about 8 months ago, Foster found out about Chloe. His ex-girlfriend, Rachel Adams, before she married Marcus, had never told him she was pregnant. When he found out he had a daughter, he didn't see a child. He saw a lottery ticket. The insurance policy, Sarah said. Exactly. But he needed help. He couldn't just snatch a kid in Texas when he was living in Oklahoma with a record. That's where Kevin Morrison came in. Tom clicked to another screen showing financial transactions. 3 months ago, Foster paid Kevin $5,000. I found it buried in Kevin's bank records. Cash deposits made in increments to avoid suspicion. Kevin was desperate too. Lost his job, facing eviction, drinking heavily. Foster offered him a way out. So they planned this together, Sarah said. Kevin had access to the house, knew Chloe's routine, could take her without arousing immediate suspicion. Foster stayed in the background, avoiding direct exposure until the actual crime. Right, and here's where it gets really disturbing. Tom pulled up the insurance policy. The policy required Chloe to be missing and presumed dead for at least 30 days before Foster could file a claim. That's why they needed to keep her hidden. But alive, Sarah added, because they couldn't produce a body without evidence of how she died. They needed her to simply disappear. Until phase 2, Tom said grimly. Once the media coverage died down and everyone assumed she was gone for good, Foster would kill her, dispose of the body where it would never be found, and collect the insurance money, split it with Kevin, pay off his debts, and start over. Sarah felt sick. The cold calculation of it, the complete disregard for a child's life. It was one of the most sociopathic crimes she'd ever encountered. Have we found any indication of where they might have gone? She asked. Tom shook his head. Foster's phone has been off since June 23rd. Kevin's truck was found abandoned and he hasn't used his credit cards or phone. They're either hiding together or they've split up. Sarah's phone rang. It was Agent Marcus Webb from the FBI. Detective Mitchell, we may have a lead. A motel clerk in Corpus Christi called in a tip. Says a man matching Daniel Foster's description checked in 2 days ago. Paying cash, no ID. We're sending agents to the location now. Corpus Christi, 4 hours south on the Gulf Coast. It made sense. A place to disappear in the tourist crowds. Easy access to Mexico if things went south. I'm on my way, Sarah said. Detective, this is an FBI operation now. We appreciate your work, but that little girl is my case, Sarah interrupted. I found her. I promised her we'd catch the man who did this. I'm coming. There was a pause. Then Agent Webb sighed. Fine, but you follow our lead. Understood? Understood. Sarah grabbed her keys and jacket, adrenaline surging through her exhausted body. Tom stood up. I'm coming with you. No, I need you here. Coordinating with the local agencies, monitoring communications. If this is Foster, he might try to contact Kevin or someone else. I need you watching. Tom nodded reluctantly. Be careful, Sarah. The drive to Corpus Christi felt endless. Sarah pushed her sedan to 80 miles per hour, watching the landscape transform from rolling hills to flat coastal plains. She called the hospital to check on Chloe and was told the little girl was sleeping peacefully, with both parents at her bedside and 2 officers stationed outside her door. By the time Sarah arrived at the motel, a rundown establishment called the Seaside Inn just off Highway 181, FBI agents had already surrounded the building. Agent Webb met her in the parking lot, a tall man with silver hair and a tactical vest. Room 114, second floor, he said. We've confirmed someone is inside. The room was rented to a John Smith, paid cash for 3 nights. The clerk identified Foster from the photo. What's the plan? Sarah asked. We're going to knock, announce, and breach if necessary. Foster is considered armed and dangerous. If he resists, we respond accordingly. Sarah nodded, checking her weapon. She'd never shot anyone in her 12 years of law enforcement, but for Daniel Foster, she thought she might make an exception. The team moved into position. Agents stacked along the second-floor walkway, assault rifles ready. Sarah hung back as directed, her hand on her sidearm. Agent Webb approached the door. Daniel Foster, this is the FBI. We have a warrant for your arrest. Open the door. Silence. Last chance, Foster. Open the door or we're coming in. Still nothing. Agent Webb gave the signal, and the battering ram swung. The door exploded inward and agents flooded into the room, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Sarah heard the commotion, then sudden silence. A moment later, Agent Webb emerged, his expression grim. He's not here, but you need to see this. Sarah entered the motel room, and the scene that greeted her was chilling in its implications. The room was chaos, clothes strewn across the floor, empty liquor bottles on the nightstand, and on the small desk by the window, a laptop computer left open and running. But it was what covered the walls that made Sarah's blood run cold. Photographs of Chloe Adams, dozens of them printed out and taped to the walls. Pictures that had clearly been taken from social media. Chloe at her birthday party, Chloe at the park, Chloe in her daycare uniform. Some of the photos had been marked with red pen, dates and times scrawled next to them. This wasn't just planning. This was obsession. He's been tracking her for months, Agent Webb said, standing beside Sarah, building a profile, learning her routines, her habits. On the desk next to the laptop, Sarah found a spiral notebook filled with handwritten notes. She carefully flipped through the pages with gloved hands, reading Daniel Foster's meticulous planning. Target: Chloe Adams, age 5, value $500K. Mother: Rachel Adams, formerly Foster, remarried to Marcus Adams, 2017. Half-brother Kevin Morrison. Potential asset: gambling debts, employment issues, leverage available. Page after page detailed the plan with cold precision. Kevin's recruitment, the timing of the abduction, the location for holding Chloe, even contingency plans if things went wrong. Foster had thought of everything, except for the possibility that Chloe would be found alive. Look at this, Tom Reeves said from across the room. He'd arrived with the FBI team and was examining the laptop. He's got surveillance footage here, from the Adams house. Sarah moved to look over his shoulder. The laptop screen showed grainy video footage from what appeared to be a camera positioned across the street from 412 Pearson Street. The timestamp showed dates going back 2 months. He was watching them, Sarah said, for weeks, maybe months, learning their patterns. There's more, Tom said, clicking through files. Email exchanges between Foster and Kevin Morrison. They're using fake accounts, but it's definitely them. Sarah read through the emails, her anger building with each message. The exchanges were clinical, businesslike, discussing Chloe as if she were merchandise rather than a human child. K, Package needs to be secured on June 14th. Window of opportunity between 9:11 a.m. Confirm you can execute. Payment on delivery. D. Confirmed. We'll have package at location by noon. What about phase 2? Still feeling uncertain about that part. K. Phase 2 is non-negotiable. You knew the deal. 50K late for completion. Don't go soft on me now. Dondern. Kevin was having second thoughts, Sarah said. That's probably why he took Chloe during the day instead of at night like they planned. He was rushing, trying to get it over with before he lost his nerve entirely. Agent Webb's phone rang. He answered, listened for a moment, then looked at Sarah. That was the Corpus Christi PD. They found Foster's car in a parking garage downtown, abandoned about an hour ago. He knows we're on to him, Sarah said. He's running again. Or he's still in the city, Webb countered. Corpus Christi is a big place. Lots of places to hide. We're setting up roadblocks on all major routes out of the city. But Sarah's instincts were telling her something different. Foster was smart, methodical. He wouldn't stay in a city where FBI agents were flooding the streets looking for him. He had an exit strategy. She turned back to the laptop, scrolling through Foster's files. There had to be something, some clue about where he would go next. And then she found it, a folder labeled Travel Docs. Inside were scanned copies of a passport, bus tickets to Brownsville, and a printout of border crossing information for pedestrians entering Mexico. He's heading for Mexico, Sarah said. Brownsville is 2.5 hours from here. If he left an hour ago, he's got a head start, Webb finished. But we can still catch him. Brownsville PD and Border Patrol will set up checkpoints. Agent Webb immediately got on his radio, coordinating with multiple agencies. Within minutes, law enforcement across South Texas was mobilized. Daniel Foster's photo was sent to every border crossing, every bus station, every checkpoint between Corpus Christi and the Mexican border. Sarah stood in that motel room, surrounded by the evidence of Foster's sick obsession, and felt the weight of the case pressing down on her. They were close, so close, but close wasn't good enough. As long as Foster was free, he was a threat. Her phone rang. It was Rachel Adams. Detective Mitchell. Rachel's voice was shaky but determined. Chloe just remembered something. She said she overheard Danny talking on the phone. He was speaking Spanish to someone, making plans to meet them in a place called Matamoros. She said he kept saying that word. Matamoros, the Mexican city directly across the border from Brownsville. Mrs. Adams, thank you. This is incredibly helpful. How is Chloe doing? She's scared, but she's eating and she let the nurses give her a bath. The doctors say we can take her home tomorrow if she continues to improve. That's wonderful news. Keep those officers close and call me if anything at all, concerns you. Sarah hung up and turned to Agent Webb. Foster's meeting someone in Matamoros. He's got contacts there, probably arranged before he even took Chloe. He's been planning his escape route all along. Then we stop him at the border, Webb said. The drive to Brownsville was tense and silent. Sarah rode with Agent Webb and 2 other FBI agents, following behind a convoy of law enforcement vehicles. The sun was setting over the Gulf, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, beautiful and incongruous with the grim mission at hand. By the time they reached Brownsville, night had fallen. The city's international bridge, one of several crossing points into Matamoros, was illuminated by harsh floodlights. Border Patrol agents had set up additional checkpoints, and every vehicle and pedestrian was being scrutinized. Sarah joined the command post that had been established near the bridge. Maps of the area covered the walls, showing not just the official crossing points, but also known smuggling routes and weak points in border security. Foster knows we're looking for him, said Captain Luis Herrera of the Brownsville PD, a stocky man with sharp eyes. If he's smart, he won't try to cross at an official port of entry. He's smart, Sarah confirmed, but he's also desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. At 9:47 p.m., the call came in. A Border Patrol agent had spotted a man matching Daniel Foster's description at a bus station 3 blocks from the bridge. The man had purchased a ticket using cash and was waiting for a bus that would take him to a location near an unofficial crossing point. Sarah was in the lead vehicle as they raced to the bus station. When they arrived, agents fanned out, surrounding the building. Through the grimy windows, Sarah could see about a dozen people in the waiting area. And there, sitting in the back corner with a baseball cap pulled low and a backpack at his feet, was Daniel Foster. Agent Webb gave the signal, and agents entered from both the front and back entrances simultaneously. Foster looked up, saw the FBI vests, and ran. He bolted toward a side exit, but agents were already there. He reversed direction, knocking over chairs and pushing past frightened passengers. Sarah was closest to him, her weapon drawn. FBI, get on the ground now. Foster's eyes met hers, and she saw desperation and rage. He reached into his jacket, and Sarah's finger tensed on her trigger. But instead of a weapon, he pulled out a cell phone and threw it against the wall, shattering it. "Evidence destroyed," he shouted. "You've got nothing." 2 agents tackled him before he could do anything else. Foster fought like a cornered animal, screaming obscenities, but within seconds he was face down on the floor with handcuffs being snapped around his wrists. Sarah approached slowly, holstering her weapon. She knelt down so she could look Foster in the eyes. "Daniel Foster, you're under arrest for the kidnapping and attempted murder of Chloe Adams. You have the right to remain silent." As she read him his rights, Foster laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "You think you've won? That kid was supposed to make me rich. Instead, she's ruined my life." Sarah's jaw tightened. "You ruined your own life the moment you decided a child's life was worth less than money. Where's Kevin Morrison?" Foster's expression darkened. "Kevin, that coward? He's probably dead in a ditch somewhere. He couldn't handle what needed to be done." "What does that mean?" Sarah demanded. But Foster just smiled, a cold, ugly expression. "Lawyer. I want a lawyer." He wouldn't say another word. Foster was transported to the Federal Detention Center in Brownsville, where he would await transfer back to Texas to face charges. As they loaded him into the transport vehicle, Sarah felt a mixture of satisfaction and frustration. They'd caught Foster, stopped him before he could escape to Mexico, but Kevin Morrison was still missing. And Foster's words echoed in her mind. He's probably dead in a ditch somewhere. Had Foster killed his accomplice? Was Kevin Morrison a victim now too? At 11:30 p.m., as Sarah was preparing to head back to Lockhart, she received a call from a Texas Ranger named Jake Sutton. "Detective Mitchell? We found Kevin Morrison. You're going to want to see this." "Where?" "About 40 miles north of Corpus Christi off Highway 77. There's a rest stop there, pretty isolated. A truck driver found him in the bathroom." Sarah's stomach dropped. "Is he alive?" "Barely. He's been shot twice, once in the shoulder, once in the abdomen, once. He's being airlifted to the trauma center in Corpus Christi now. But detective, he's asking for you. He says he wants to confess." Sarah looked at Agent Webb. "I need to get to Corpus Christi." "Go," Webb said. "We've got Foster. You finish your case." The flight to Corpus Christi took 40 minutes. Sarah spent that time thinking about Kevin Morrison, the man who'd betrayed his own family, sold his niece to a sociopath, and then apparently been shot by that same man when he outlived his usefulness. At the hospital, she found Kevin Morrison in the ICU, hooked up to machines, his face pale and drawn. A doctor informed Sarah that he'd lost a lot of blood and one of the bullets had damaged his liver, but he was expected to survive. Kevin's eyes fluttered open when Sarah entered the room. He looked older than his 38 years, broken and defeated. "Detective," he whispered, "I need to tell you everything. I need to make this right." Sarah pulled out her recorder. "Kevin Morrison, you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent." "I waive them," Kevin interrupted. "I waive all my rights. I just want to tell the truth. Please." Sarah nodded to the officer in the room to witness, then sat down. "Start from the beginning." Kevin Morrison's confession came in fragments, broken by pain medication and the beeping of medical equipment. But what emerged was a story of manipulation, desperation, and ultimately, a conscience that had nearly cost him his life. "It started 8 months ago," Kevin began, his voice hoarse. "I was at my lowest point. Lost my job, about to be evicted, drinking every night. I was worthless. Then Daniel found me." "How did he find you?" Sarah asked, her recorder capturing every word. "Social media. He'd been looking for Rachel, trying to find out about his kid. When he saw I was her brother and that I was struggling, he saw an opportunity." Kevin coughed, wincing in pain. "He reached out, said he wanted to connect with family, talk about Chloe. I thought maybe he'd changed, wanted to be a real father." Sarah said nothing, letting Kevin continue at his own pace. "We met at a bar in Austin. He bought me drinks, listened to my problems, acted like he cared. Then he made his pitch." Kevin's eyes filled with tears. "He said Chloe was his daughter, that he had a right to her. He said Rachel and Marcus had stolen his chance at being a father, and he offered me $50,000 to help him get her back." $50,000 for kidnapping his own daughter, Sarah said flatly. "He didn't call it kidnapping. He called it family reunification." He said we'd just keep her for a few weeks, let Rachel and Marcus panic, then he'd negotiate for custody rights. He made it sound reasonable, like he was the victim. Kevin's laugh was bitter. I was desperate enough to believe him. When did you realize it wasn't about custody? Kevin closed his eyes. About a month before we took Chloe. I went to Daniel's apartment in Oklahoma City to talk about the plan. That's when I saw the insurance policy papers on his desk. When I asked him about it, he got angry, defensive, said it was just a precaution, that if something happened to Chloe while she was with him, he needed to be protected. But you knew better. I knew better, Kevin admitted. But by then, he'd already paid me $5,000. I'd used it to pay off debts, buy food, keep a roof over my head, And he said if I backed out, he'd go to the police, tell them I'd approached him with the plan, make me look like the monster. Sarah understood the trap Foster had laid. Give Kevin just enough money to make him complicit, then threaten him with exposure. Classic manipulation. Tell me about the day you took Chloe, Sarah said. Kevin's face crumpled. That morning, I woke up knowing I couldn't go through with it. I'd been having nightmares about Chloe, about what might happen to her. She was my niece. I'd read her bedtime stories, played with her, watched her grow. I couldn't do it. But you did. Daniel called me at 8 in the morning. Said if I didn't do it that day, he'd come to Lockhart himself and take her. He'd do it his way and it would be violent. He said Rachel and Marcus might get hurt if I didn't follow the plan. So Kevin's voice broke. I convinced myself I was protecting them. That if I took Chloe gently, made her feel safe, at least she wouldn't be traumatized. You took her from her bed while she was sleeping. I told her we were going on an adventure. She trusted me. God, she trusted me. Kevin was crying openly now. I drove her to that house in Bastrop. Daniel was waiting. As soon as I handed Chloe over, I knew I'd made a terrible mistake. The way he looked at her, there was no love there. No fatherly affection. Just cold calculation. What happened next? Daniel was furious that I'd taken her during the day instead of at night like we planned. He said I might have been seen, that I'd compromised the whole operation. We argued. Chloe was crying, scared. I wanted to take her and leave right then, but Daniel pulled out a gun. Told me if I tried anything, he'd kill us both. Sarah leaned forward. He threatened your life. He told me the plan had changed, that I needed to disappear for a few weeks while everyone searched for Chloe. Then, once the media attention died down, we'd execute Phase 2. Kevin's hands trembled. That's when he told me what Phase 2 really meant. He was going to kill Chloe, make it look like an accident or like she died of exposure, then dispose of her body where it would never be found and collect the insurance money. And you agreed to this? No. Kevin's heart monitor spiked and a nurse stepped into the room. Sarah held up a hand and the nurse hesitated by the door. I told him I wouldn't do it, that he was insane. That's when he hit me with the gun, knocked me down. He said I was already in too deep, that if I went to the police, I'd go to prison for kidnapping. He said the only way out was through. Kevin coughed again, blood speckling his lips. The nurse moved forward, checking his vitals, but Kevin waved her away. I need to finish this. What did you do? Sarah asked. I left, got in my truck and drove to San Antonio like we'd planned. I was supposed to establish an alibi there, but I couldn't stop thinking about Chloe alone in that house with Daniel. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. On the third day, I tried calling Daniel, begging him to let her go. He laughed at me, called me weak. When did you decide to tell the truth? On June 23rd. I couldn't take it anymore. I was going to drive to the Lockhart police station and confess everything. I called Daniel to tell him. He said if I did that, he'd kill Chloe immediately and disappear into Mexico. Said I'd have to live knowing I got her killed. Sarah felt her jaw tighten. Foster had manipulated Kevin at every turn, using guilt, fear, and threats to maintain control. So instead, I drove to the house in Bastrop, Kevin continued. I was going to get Chloe out myself, take her to a hospital, and turn myself in. But when I got there, Daniel was already gone. The house was empty. I thought he'd already. Kevin couldn't finish the sentence. He'd moved her, Sarah said. The property owner called 911 after hearing a child crying. That's how we found her. Kevin's relief was visible. Thank God. When I heard on the news that she'd been found alive, I broke down. I was in a motel in Corpus Christi watching the news, and I just lost it. I called Daniel and told him to turn himself in, that it was over. That's when he shot you. Kevin nodded weakly. He showed up at my motel room an hour later. Didn't say a word, just pulled out a gun and fired. I fell and he went through my things, took my phone, my wallet. I heard him say something about tying up loose ends, then he left. I thought I was going to die there. How did you get to the rest stop? I dragged myself to my truck, drove as far as I could before I blacked out. A truck driver found me and called 911. Kevin looked directly at Sarah, his eyes pleading. Detective, I know I can never make this right. I betrayed my family, put my niece through hell, and I'll have to live with that forever. But please tell Rachel and Marcus that I'm sorry. Tell Chloe that Uncle Kevin is so sorry. Sarah stood, her expression unreadable. Kevin Morrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, child endangerment, and accessory to attempted murder. You'll remain in custody here until you're stable enough to be transferred to the county jail. Is there anything else you want to tell me? Kevin shook his head, exhausted. Just make sure Daniel never gets out of prison. He's evil. Pure evil. As Sarah left the ICU, she felt the weight of the case finally lifting from her shoulders. They had both perpetrators in custody. Chloe was safe. The nightmare was over. But the work wasn't finished yet. 2 weeks later, Sarah sat in the Caldwell County Courthouse for Daniel Foster's arraignment. The courtroom was packed. Media, concerned citizens, and in the front row, Rachel and Marcus Adams. Chloe was not present. She was home with a counselor, beginning the long process of healing. Daniel Foster was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit and shackles, his face harder and more defiant than ever. When the charges were read, kidnapping, child endangerment, attempted murder, conspiracy, and insurance fraud, he showed no emotion. His public defender entered a plea of not guilty, though everyone in that courtroom knew the evidence against him was overwhelming. Kevin Morrison had agreed to testify against Foster in exchange for a reduced sentence. The forensic evidence from the abandoned house, the emails, the insurance policy, the surveillance footage, it all painted a damning picture. The judge denied bail, citing Foster as a flight risk and a danger to the community. He would remain in custody until trial. As Foster was led out of the courtroom, he turned and looked directly at Rachel Adams. For a moment, their eyes met. The woman he'd once dated, the mother of the child he'd tried to murder for money. Rachel didn't flinch, didn't look away. She simply stared back, and in her eyes was something harder than anger: contempt. Outside the courthouse, Sarah found Marcus and Rachel standing in the summer heat. Rachel looked healthier than she had in weeks, though the trauma still showed in the tightness around her eyes. "How is Chloe doing?" Sarah asked. "Better," Rachel said. "She's eating normally now, sleeping through most nights. She has nightmares sometimes, but Dr. Torres has been wonderful. She says Chloe is resilient, that children have an amazing capacity to heal. And you too?" Sarah looked between them. Marcus put his arm around his wife. "We're taking it one day at a time. Family therapy, lots of patience. We're just grateful she's alive." "The DA tells us Kevin Morrison will plead guilty," Rachel said quietly. "He'll get 15 to 20 years. Part of me wants to hate him forever, but another part." She trailed off. "He's your brother," Sarah said. "It's complicated. He betrayed us in the worst way possible," Rachel continued. "But he also couldn't go through with the final plan. He tried to save her in the end, even if it was too late. I don't know if I'll ever forgive him, but I'm trying to understand." Sarah nodded. Forgiveness was a personal journey, one that would take years. "What about Daniel Foster's trial?" Marcus asked. "It'll probably be 6 months to a year before it goes to trial," Sarah explained. "But with Kevin's testimony, the physical evidence, and Chloe's statement, if she's able to testify, the prosecution is confident they'll get a conviction. We're looking at multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole." "Good," Marcus said simply. "That monster should never see daylight again." 3 months later, Sarah received a letter at the police station. The return address showed it was from the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, Kevin Morrison's prison facility. She opened it carefully and read, "Dear Detective Mitchell, I know you have no reason to care about what I have to say, but I wanted you to know that I think about Chloe every single day. I see her face in my nightmares. I hear her calling me Uncle Kevin, trusting me. That trust is something I can never earn back. I'm not writing to ask for sympathy or forgiveness. I don't deserve either. I'm writing because I want you to know that your determination to find Chloe, your refusal to give up when everyone else assumed she was dead, that saved her life. If you'd given up even 1 day earlier, Daniel would have moved forward with phase 2. Thank you for being the kind of person who doesn't stop fighting for justice, even when the odds seem impossible. I hope Chloe grows up healthy and happy, surrounded by people who truly love her. I hope she forgets Uncle Kevin ever existed. Sincerely, Kevin Morrison." Sarah folded the letter and placed it in Chloe's case file, which was now officially closed. She thought about forgiveness, about redemption, about the complicated nature of human beings who could be both victims and perpetrators. On a sunny afternoon in October, 4 months after Chloe's rescue, Sarah drove past the Adams house on Pearson Street. She'd been invited to stop by, and she'd brought a gift, a children's book about a brave little girl who overcame a scary adventure. Chloe answered the door with Rachel, and Sarah was struck by how much healthier the child looked. Her cheeks were full and rosy, her hair clean and styled with colorful clips. She wore a purple dress and held a stuffed unicorn, the same one from the birthday photo. "Hi, Detective Sarah," Chloe said brightly. "Mommy said you were coming." "Hi, Chloe. How are you feeling?" "Good. I started kindergarten last month. My teacher is really nice." They sat in the living room and Chloe showed Sarah her school artwork and talked excitedly about her new friends. There were still moments when her smile would fade, when she'd become quiet and distant, but overall, she was recovering. The human spirit, especially in children, was remarkably resilient. Before Sarah left, Chloe hugged her, a tight, earnest hug that brought tears to Sarah's eyes. "Thank you for finding me," Chloe whispered. "Mommy said you never stopped looking." "I would never stop looking," Sarah said, hugging her back. "You're very special, Chloe Adams." As Sarah drove away from the house, she thought about all the missing children cases that didn't end this way, the ones who were never found, the families who never got closure. Chloe Adams was one of the lucky ones, and Sarah Mitchell would carry that victory, that one precious life saved, with her for the rest of her career. The classified files on Chloe Adams were marked solved and filed away in the Lockhart Police Department archives, a testament to perseverance, determination, and the refusal to give up hope, even when all logic said it was lost. Sometimes, against all odds, the good guys win. Sometimes the lost are found. Sometimes justice prevails. Daniel Foster was convicted on all charges in March 2020 and sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. He is currently incarcerated in a maximum security facility in Texas. Kevin Morrison pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit kidnapping and received a sentence of 18 years. He is eligible for parole in 2032. Chloe Adams continues to thrive. She is now in therapy and doing well in school. Her parents have become advocates for missing children, working with organizations to raise awareness and support families going through similar traumas. Detective Sarah Mitchell received a commendation for her work on the case and continues to serve with the Lockhart Police Department, specializing in crimes against children. The abandoned house in Bastrop County where Chloe was held has been demolished. In its place, the property owner has planted a garden as a symbol of hope and renewal.